you can always go downtown, where past and present collide, and sometimes your dreams can turn into living nightmares. Last Night in Soho comes to us courtesy of Edgar Wright, who wrote and directed the movie, along with Christy Wilson Caines, who also wrote 1917. She helped Edgar Wright with the writing duties here. And if the name Edgar Wright sounds familiar, well, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, The World's End, Baby Driver. He did movies like that. And even though The World's End was not necessarily his best effort, it had a lot of witty writing because Edgar Wright is just really fucking phenomenal at just finding that perfect pitch and able to, blend various genres. He blended horror and comedy and everything with Shaun of the Dead. He blended action, a little bit of horror, and quite a bit of comedy with Hot Fuzz. And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, very, very, very underappreciated, even though it has gained cult status. I still feel like that movie doesn't quite get the love that it deserves. And Baby Driver, which I have not checked out yet, it's been on my list, but I've just had so many goddamn movies. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I've heard such great things. And when I saw the trailers for Last Night in Soho, I was definitely interested. And there's Anya Taylor-Joy, who I've loved since The Witch. She was great in Emma, the remake of Emma, which I really, really love from last year. And she's a phenomenal actress. Bright, articulate, fucking beautiful. She's got that classic look about her where she could fit in any time period, and actually lends a lot of credence to this movie. She fits in, like she can fit in the 50s, 60s, that kind of stuff. She can fit in the modern era. She really just has that, great, striking look about her, and she's also a terrific actress. Tomasa McKenzie, who was in Jojo Rabbit, she turned in a really good performance there, and I was excited to see what she could do here. Jack, there's a character Jack, played by Matt Smith, who was the Doctor Who, and it's actually funny, at one point he goes in a telephone booth during this, ha ha ha, I see what you did there. And then there is a character, Mrs. Collins, played by Diana Rigg, who, there's actually a graphical tribute at the very beginning for Diana. She passed away right after filming was completed. This film was no doubt shelved for a little bit due to the pandemic, and it was a nice touching tribute there. And then you had Michael Shajo, pretty certain I butchered that. He has a key role here. He was in Attack the Block and has only been in a few roles, which actually shocks me. And then there's Terrence Stamp and various other people here. And have I gotten far enough in the review where I can say, go fucking watch this now, what are you doing, why are you watching, thank you for watching the rest of this review, watch this fucking movie, go to your local theater, go somewhere, go some goddamn place and watch it. I mean, figure out maybe a way where a theater can broadcast it on the side of a barn, pay admission, and you can watch this, because this movie is fucking phenomenal. Absolutely fucking phenomenal. I can't gush about this movie enough. I was definitely interested when I saw the trailer. One, when I saw Anya Taylor-Joy, and I'm like, okay, I'm fucking locked in. Who's this other girl? Oh, she was in Jojo Rabbit. And wow, there's a whole lot of great, goodness in this cast here, and there are a lot of great supporting roles. And I will say that Edgar Wright, he found the perfect way to blend drama, horror, and mystery and rewrite history, not DuckTales, woo-woo, but it's set in the backdrop of Tomasa McKenzie's character Eloise wanting to become a fashion designer, and she has big dreams. She lost her mother at an early age, her grandmother raised her, and they're in a small village every day like the one before. Bonjour, bonjour. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. It's not like that. It's not a musical. She has these big dreams of being a fashion designer and wants to go to London. Pursue these big dreams. Now, her grandmother cautions her, like, just so you know, it was a little bit too much for your mom, and her mom did meet an unfortunate end that, I'll get into it in spoilers, but let's just say her mom's not around. Not totally, but sort of is, sort of isn't, it's a little bit complicated, but Eloise obviously was influenced by her mother and her grandmother. Classic music is like something that she is really, really into. And at first, you're not sure what the fuck's going on here, because you think this, almost English cottage, she's listening to these records, she's designing these dresses, what the hell is going on? And it takes place in two time periods. It takes place in modern day and then in the mid-60s. And what's nice about this is it blends it perfectly. She gets to London. Turns out these things don't quite go all that well with her and her dorm, with her dorm sisters or girls or fashion designers that are kind of bitches. She does end up meeting this guy, John, played by Michael, in a pretty terrific role, by the way. He steals the scene pretty much in that, without even trying to. He just, commands the screen whenever he's there. And Eloise, she's all, scared and stuff like that because being in a big city like London. I've never been to London, but I heard if you're in a smaller village or you're in a small city, I imagine it'd probably be a freaking culture shock to me. I've heard great things about London, and I've heard there's some areas of London you don't want to go to. Any UK friends, British friends, viewers having to be watching this, is London a good city, or is it a bad city, or is it both? But she has these big dreams. These things kind of work out. She moves out of the dorm. She moves in with Mrs. Collins, who had a room for rent. And it's this old house. She can't have boys over after a certain, certain hour. And, just don't do laundry at night because it bangs through. And, oh, be careful. Like, get used to the smell because sometimes, the smells come up and everything because it's a really, really old house that comes up during the summer since you're going to be here a while. Well, that last one's a little bit unusual. Ties into a little bit later. And from the opening bit, I want to say the soundtrack selection, pitch perfect. No, I'm not talking about the movie Pitch Perfect. Even though when I Googled Anna Kendrick's cups, I was disappointed by not finding very dirty imagery. Always delete your search history, by the way. But Tomasa McKenzie, she really captures the struggle that Eloise is going through because she keeps in contact with her grandmother and is trying to make, things work. And in this house, she starts having very, very vivid dreams about a beautiful blonde woman that she finds out later is named Sandy, a young woman, Anya Taylor-Joy, who is in the movie enough to where she just absolutely steals the show as well. A lot of show-stealing stuff here. And she keeps having these vivid dreams of like, okay, Sandy had these big dreams of being a singer and everything, and then it turns out that like as things go on, maybe these dreams did turn into a nightmare and she got sucked into a world she shouldn't have been in. And it's a show-busy world and kind of the seedy underworld, and you get to find out that a lot of people really weren't all that great. Maybe didn't have her best interests, if you'll see what I mean. And Eloise is getting haunted by this stuff. She gets inspired at first by all these retro, Audrey Hepburn, like stuff. I mean, she had an Audrey Hepburn poster in her, or Aubrey Hepburn. Sorry, Audrey Hepburn. Aubrey Hepburn. Whole point is she had a Miss Hepburn poster right there, and she was a, breakfast at Tiffany's. I swear that's the one thing we've got. Boy, totally butchered that song. She, has this retro feel to her. She has all these records with her. And it's a way to keep her mom, with her. She does occasionally see her mom in, like, mirrors and stuff like that. And her mom's just smiling at her. Nothing bad. Like, nothing bad of it. I mean, obviously, losing your parent at an early age could haunt you. And then, unfortunately, these visions, every time she goes to sleep, start to get darker to the point where she doesn't want to be in that room. And at first, it's only in that room. And it starts to bleed out everywhere else. And then things really start to go to the point where she's got to figure out what the fuck happened. Did something really, really bad happen in her room? What exactly occurred? Who's at fault? Who isn't at fault? Before she goes insane. And there are ties back into, what happened with her family a little bit that could be bleeding in. Maybe she's insane, maybe she's not. The nice thing about this movie, and I'm going to gush a lot, this may end up being a long review, is the cinematography. Cinematography is fucking beautiful. Great shit. If this movie isn't nominated for several Golden Globes / Academy Awards, at least on a technical side, it is a fucking, misfire. Because from a technical point of view, it's fucking beautiful. The breathtaking cinematography, the colors leap off the screen, the blending of when she's seen herself in Sandy's shoes, and they blend where, like, there's this dance scene where it's like, it's Sandy, and then it's Eloise. And then Sandy, and then it's Eloise. And she's dancing with, Matt Smith's character, Jack. And she's just doing all this stuff, but it's just great how they do it. They got the retro stuff down perfectly. The music is great. Anya Taylor-Joy, at one point, does a version of Downtown, Loretta Lynn's Downtown. Great shit. And she really, that's actually her singing. They released it on YouTube, and it's fucking phenomenal. What can she do? Seriously, what can she do? Great actress, great singer, and just striking look. I mean, she's just going to be a great actress for years and years and years. She's got that presence. But she does this singing performance, and then that kind of leads to a whole bunch of stuff where these dreams get more vivid, a little darker, and really, really, ugh. And I'm not going to get into spoilers yet, but the soundtrack's another thing I have to put over. I wrote some songs down. A World Without Love by Peter and Gordon. Wishing and Hoping and Dreaming. Just Do It, and From Now On You Will Be Here. Dusty Springfield. Don't Throw Your Love Away by the Searchers. Starstruck by the Kinks. Kinks are a forgotten band. They actually were. They were pretty good. I've Got My Mind Set on You. Not the George Harrison version. The James Ray version. You can call him James, or you can call him Ray, or you can call him James Ray, not Jimmy Ray. If you get that song, you ought to know. Or who wants to know? So, Puppet on a String, Sadie Shaw, not to be confused with the Gail Kim theme. And then the downtown versions, Eloise by Barry Ryan, and just many others. I mean, Google soundtrack. It's a great dive into 60s, stuff. And they do, a few renditions, but as far as the music they have just throughout the entire movie, it's fucking great. And then Eloise really starts to, things really kick up a notch. It blends drama, horror, and mystery perfectly. It really does. It's goddamn good. Again, go fucking watch this. It's really, really good. Like, I don't often gush so much about movies to the point where I encourage people to go watch it, and your mileage may vary. Now, some people may not like this. Some people may think that, oh, what the fuck's this guy talking about? This bald-headed idiot's all weird, and yeah, I mean, I am weird, but I also have my opinions, and this is the 53rd movie that I've seen of this year, and it's just great. It's really, really fucking good. I can't get over how fucking good it is, and Edgar Wright is one of the best directors going today, and he's a great writer, and Christy even does a good job submitting, with the writing she has. And I think that was kind of nice that she helped write the screenplay, because Edgar Wright obviously had the wit, but Christy, getting a woman's perspective and getting it where you find out what women have to go through to become stars. It gets very rough, and there are some rough scenes. I will say there is a bit of a sensory warning. If you can possibly suffer from epilepsy, maybe don't watch this. And also, if you're a victim of assault, some scenes you may not like. That's not spoiling. That's just kind of a warning. But this is really, really fucking phenomenal. Like, fucking great. I love this. I absolutely love this. This replaces In the Heights as my favorite movie of the year. And, I mean, I had the Map of Tiny Perfect Things. That's going to be high up on there. Saint Maud. In the Heights was my #1 movie. Or at least, it was a toss-up between that and those two. This is head and shoulders my favorite movie of the year. We only got 2 months left. Now, I'm not saying that other movies, on either streaming or any movies coming out in theaters that I happen to watch won't be as good. I was transfixed, enjoying myself from basically bell to bell, to use a wrestling cliche, but from opening to closing, and even the credits, I was just sitting there for a bit. I was standing there. I didn't want the movie to be over. That's how much I fucking enjoyed it. Now, is the story predictable? Yeah, you can kind of... I figured some stuff out. I mean, that's not necessarily the issue. It's the ride it takes you on. Because you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make something really good. And the way they blended the 60s and the modern age and flipped the stuff around, and the dream sequences and the styles and everything, and the pizzazz and just the color scheme in particular was really good. Everything leaps off the screen. It's rich and dripping in color, and you probably should see a doctor if you're rich and dripping in color. But moving on from that, it's just really, really good. I can't put over Tommaso McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy's characters enough, or as far as their acting. Miss McKenzie is going to be a bright star as well, and I'd only seen her in Jojo Rabbit and maybe one other movie. But she's got the chops. And Terrence Stamp, he only has a supporting role here. He's always good to see. Great character actor. He's been a lot of weird shit, and he's elevated at times. Been a part of some stuff where you're like, wow, really, they got him here? But he fits here, and I can't praise this movie enough. This movie's really, really, really fucking good. Go watch it. Please go watch it. Go fucking watch this movie. It's great. It's absolutely great. I use some passes to go to it, and I watch it with one of my best friends, and it's just, there weren't that many people in the theater, but I was still watching, and I was enjoying it. And didn't want it to end. Fucking loved it. Soundtrack, all that, everything. I fucking loved it. No movie is by any means perfect, but my goodness, about as close to perfect as one of my favorite movies of the last 5 fucking years. Because any flaws there could have been were just outweighed by the style and the pizzazz and just everything, and I fucking love it. And I'm going to get into spoilers, but please, go watch this. Go fucking watch this. Please watch this. I encourage you. Okay, spoilers. Spoilers. Okay. So, the dream sequences she's having basically involve Jack, as a manager of Sandy. He kind of befriends her and everything. Does this whole thing where it turns out he stages this fight to, look like he's standing up for her. They become an item. He's helping her become a singer. Not at the bar that she wanted to, the dance club she wanted to, this ritzy one. But one that was fine, but a little bit more of a dive. It looked fine, but then it turned out she was part of more of a burlesque show, because we see this through various sequences. And then things go really, really south when she tries to leave Jack, and Jack gets a little bit upset. During this whole thing, there is somebody that is talking to her because she's having to be with various men, and one guy's talking to her like, you're better than this. Look in the mirror. I don't want to look in the mirror. Well, then maybe it is too late for you. That's an important line for a little bit. Mirrors, reflections, seeing who you are. Eloise sees a lot of herself in Sandy. She wants to save Sandy because she's having these dreams. Why am I having these dreams? What's going on? Because her mother ended up committing suicide, and her mother had many mental health issues. Did those bleed over into this? Some horror elements come when she starts seeing weird spirits and stuff like that, especially like Sandy, because Sandy's been dead for a number of fucking years, like since the 60s. Or maybe she hasn't. What the hell is going on? But various other, ghosts and stuff like that, and weird, ghosts with blurred out faces are showing up, and my goodness, what's actually happening? Why are these dreams happening in Miss Collins' house? Miss Collins is kind of vague with her answers, but then again, Eloise doesn't really ask her until, later in the movie. She kind of forms a relationship with this guy, John, played by Michael, and they seem like a genuine couple. I do kind of like it when movies, like The Map of Tiny Perfect Things and others, where it doesn't feel like it's hitting you over the head with the relationship thing. The half of it, that in Netflix original, that was really good as far as how it dealt with all the, the relationship stuff. And everything else just blended, like, really, really well. Like, the dialogue was really fucking witty. John seems like a genuine guy, and he wants to make sure that Eloise is going to be okay. He cares about her. The fashion class stuff is good because at first she's using these dreams as inspiration for like retro gear and stuff like that. And then as these dreams start to bleed in and she starts to go more and more insane, maybe thinking that these dreams are just manifesting, she's going to end up like her mother. She's talking to her grandmother. She's getting more panicked and more panicked. She has to make ends meet. She has to go get a job at a bar and everything. And she's doing this fashion design school. An Irish pub, a 2-level Irish pub, where everybody knows your names. I'm sorry to the people from Ireland that happen to be watching this. I'm very, very sorry. If you happen to be watching this, I do apologize. But it does, there's a good family thing. I would actually like to see a side thing about that bar. I'd like to see how that bar was formed. I like to see how, certain clubs got changed to like, other shops and stuff like that. How many, businesses evolved. Because you see how things were in the 60s, all the retro cars and all the blending of beautiful, beautiful color and cinematography and everything. And then you see still colorful stuff in modern London, but it's a bit bleaker. Yes, there was bleak stuff in the 60s, as, is revealed a little bit later on. Sandy ends up having to basically do favors. Jack becomes more possessive of her. And it basically becomes where it's like, drug, booze, and all that, and having to basically do his bidding and stuff like that, and sleep with a whole bunch of guys to get gigs, and it's not a very healthy lifestyle. Eloise is seeing this, and she finally studies up on this stuff, trying to find out what happened, because she has this very vivid dream where Jack ends up killing Sandy. My God, this girl died in her room. She's going to panic. She's calling her grandmother, all panicked, and then says, wait a second, let's think about this. She does research, John her do research, she starts seeing these ghosts with these blurred out faces, and she ends up almost stabbing one of the students that she had issues with, one of the students that was making fun of her. I'm not saying she should have stabbed her, but John stopped her like, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing here? Don't know why I made him talk like an 18th century Victorian vampire, but, she's having to snap out of this stuff, but the dreams are bleeding so much into her reality, it's just getting insane. And then she's finally talking to Miss Collins. She talks to Miss Collins a little bit, finds out a little bit more about the stuff, talks to the police because she says, hey, some girl was murdered in my room. I need to find out about this and everything. I had a vision. Well, because she talked to the cops, a little bit later, she's talking to the silver-haired gentleman, played by Terrence Stamp, who has not confronted her, but has noticed her, and Eloise even changes her hair early on in the movie after getting inspired by Sandy's look, and she wearing her style and stuff like that. And, you know, the guy's like, well, I remember you. It's like, well, you look kind of familiar and everything, reflecting back to Sandy. And then, basically, things really, really start to swell up because she is working at the bar. She has a she has a guest in the lower level, and it's Terrence Stamp. And she's talking and recording his video, recording audio on her phone, and grilling him about it. Like, you know, you knew a lot of girls, you're a ladies' man, this kind of stuff. And he says, nah, you know, he's like, yeah, well, I still am a ladies' man. You know, all guys, we want to say that we're ladies' men, even though when we get to a certain age, we just stop giving a shit, i.e. most of us. But at that age, you probably should consult your doctor before doing anything, but who am I to judge? She ends up basically saying, you killed Sandy. No, if you think I killed Sandy, you really should talk. You should talk to somebody else. You should talk to this person. And then, because she confronts him, he ends up stopping in the middle of the street and then gets hit. Oh no! What the hell's going on? The killer is dead. No, it's not him. It's not the killer. It turns out that he was actually the cop from earlier, which I called. I just want to say. I mean, and not that I was the only one to call that, but I was like, I recognized facially. They did a really good job facially of making the early, you know, the actors in the 60s seem like anybody that could have been in, you know, modern times. Very, very brilliantly done. And then she's, you know, she's wanting to leave. She's like, finally, that's it. Like, you know, I panicked. Like, just kind of stuff. I need to go home. She calls her grandmother. Then she sees John. She's like, grandmother, I gotta go. Talks to John. Hey, I need to ride back to my, you know, house. No, my house. Okay. It's like, you know, well, let's get a bus. No, I can drive. She's like, you have a car? Yeah, how else do you think I can get from North to South London? Which I assume is a geography joke, but I don't get it because I've never been to London, as I said. And then they're gonna, you know, she goes to the house. Basically, she can't stay there anymore. She's having these dreams, ghosts, all this stuff. And then she talks to Miss Collins, who says, come here, have some tea. Let's sit down and talk. You know, you want to leave? Okay. Well, she says, you know, you talk to police. Very nice policewoman stopped by and everything. And as things go on, and this is something else that I called, and I don't know how anybody else wouldn't have called it. But she ends up saying, you know, well, you talk about who ended up killing who or whatever, and talk about stuff that happened in your room. Well, what ended up happening is that night where she had that dream of Sandy being stabbed. No. Sandy stabbed Jack 100 times for all the guys that she, you know, all the guys she had to sleep with. And how does Miss Collins know this? Because Miss Collins is Sandy, which pretty much was telegraphed when the fact they didn't say, see, they never said Miss Collins' first name. They never said Sandy's last name. They never said it. So you couldn't make that connection. Very brilliantly done. And it turns out she also drugged the tea. So she was like, no, you're not going to talk to the cops because you're just going to go to sleep and everything. And, oh, this boy that you had over here this one time, I'm going to kill him. She stabs him at one when he gets in there. She is, even though she's drugged, she's getting up the stairs. She's trying to stab her, Sandy is. And there's this beautiful shot where they go between the old staircase and then this glass staircase with just, you know, like this dance number and all that, you know, this music and brilliantly done. Stabbing the scissors, doing all that. She eventually kicks her down the stairs a bit. She's like, I'm gonna get you. The house suddenly is on fire because the ashtray with the lit cigarette got knocked into the records. No, those records. And then she is, you know, Eloise tries to get to the phone, tries to get to this emergency phone that's there. Basically, they're there to only make emergency calls, hence the name emergency phone. But ghosts are grabbing her and everything. Like, you know, it's kind of stuff, what are they trying to do? They're trying to kill her. No, they're trying to help her. Because Sandy killed every single guy that she slept with. That's why there were all these articles in this research saying that showed all these slain people. My goodness, it's like a woman Jack the Ripper. She just destroyed. You have to wonder how the fuck she got away with it, but then again, she was driven by vengeance. And she ends up basically telling her, you know, these ghosts end up basically saying, you have to kill her. Help us, save us. They aren't really worth saving either because they assaulted her and took advantage of her and this kind of stuff. But at the same time, she was made that way. Those guys made her that way. But there's a give and take thing. There's still versions of evil. Whether she was made that way or not, she still took a lot of lives. Not saying I don't understand it. And the house is on fire, boom, 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 all these flames and stuff like that. And she's talking to Sandy, and she's having these having these visions of talking to young Sandy. And then she's basically saying, you have to go. You have to go. You have to live. Sandy, sits down in the room because she's not going to go to jail. She's also in like her, in her 70s or 80s. And she'll see at that point, she would have been about 80, I think. The actress is 82. Rest in peace, Diana Rigg, by the way. And the house burns down. Eloise and John are rescued. Somehow John manages to survive what should have been a fucking fatal stab to the chest. But then we flash forward a little bit later. The house is totally gone, or seemingly totally gone. And Eloise is writing a fashion show for her first year, final, I assume, with all retro stuff. And it's great stuff. And she's with John. Her grandma's there. It's not wrapped up in a happy little bow, even though she's seen her mother on occasion. She sees her mother a little bit during the movie after she leaves her house. And she loses the family photo of her mom and her grandma. It's a generational thing. But she still has her mother's vision. And she sees her mother, and her mother's smiling because her mother's proud of her. Her mother didn't want to leave her, but her mother had her own issues. But she's still watching over her. And then she has this, thing. It's like, oh, I'm so proud of you, da-da. And then she sees Sandy in the mirror. And Sandy's like, does this. Blows a kiss. Like, she's still her muse. She's going to see her. She's going to be haunted by her, seemingly, because she used her as inspiration. But maybe, just maybe, everything's going to work out all right. Last Night in Soho, though, is fucking phenomenal. Absolutely fucking phenomenal. I would say A++. I obviously can't just make up these grades. I have to say A+. But it's my favorite movie of the year by far. Really fucking amazing. Fucking loved it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.